Into Germany, the business podcast from the heart of Europe.
We need startups and new businesses to keep the country moving. In 2024, more than 32,000 companies were founded, more than ever. That's a great sign, but there's no stopping there. We need a good mix of startups that grow into mid-sized companies, maybe even global players. Our country needs to make that possible, and we're working on it.
That was Katharina Reiche, Germany's Minister for Economic Affairs and Energy. She was among the many guests at the German Startup Awards in May, often referred to as the Oscars of the German startup scene. This time, the top award went to a digital learning app and a digital platform that efficiently connects restaurants and suppliers to combat food waste. Just two of many innovative companies founded in Germany. In this episode of Into Germany, we're looking at how the startup scene is regaining momentum. Welcome. I'm your host, Kelly O'Brien. We'll be talking to a pair of startups, Miss Moneypenny Technologies and Hydronauten, to get the perspective on the ground. But first, let's talk about the general situation. In the first half of 2025 alone, about 1,500 new startups were founded in Germany, up some 9% compared to the second half of 2024. Venture capital investment also jumped significantly. Around 4 billion euros was invested in German startups in the first half of 2025, a rise of roughly 45% over the equivalent period before.
I'm convinced that Germany is a very good place for startups, and I know that the German government has quite a sound interest in startups. So it's a concise strategy of the German government. They have various programs for startup support, all working together.
That was Philipp Kövener, Head of Trend and Innovation Scouting at Germany Trade and Invest. We'll talk to him later in the show. But first, let's get the view from the ground and meet two ambitious young startups in Germany. Starting things off is wallet provider Miss Moneypenny from Berlin. Anna Bojić is their CEO and co-founder. Anna, you used to be a conceptual artist and sculptor. A decade ago, you co-founded a startup that transforms digital wallets into dynamic communication platforms for businesses. Quite an unusual path.
My background is very much in line with what we do today. And by the way, my two co-founders are also very creative people. I would say we're system thinkers and system creators. We're fascinated by how people connect, how different types of relationships form, and how information is structured. And when working with our corporate clients, what we saw again and again was that companies struggle to connect with their customers, especially in industries that are hard to love, like insurance, utilities, but even in mobility, retail, and automotive. And from the beginning, we saw the space, the digital wallet, as a potential hub for connection and communication and access. So for us, Apple Wallet and Google Wallet, the two wallets you use for payment today, could be much more than just a play for boarding passes and payment. And that was the spark that actually then became Wallet Studio, now in Miss Moneypenny Technologies.
Your flagship product, Wallet Studio, is a no-code platform that enables companies to create interactive real-time engagement tools with digital wallets, eliminating the need for additional app downloads. Sounds intriguing.
It's really about solving a very fundamental problem. So on the one hand, you have companies that really struggle to create meaningful digital relationships, right? Their apps, they don't get used. The portals, they feel like work. There's a myriad of channels that you're supposed to interact with that serve very different purposes. So it's really overwhelming. Customers disengage because of that. And at the same time, people actually do want services. So what's really missing is a simple layer in between me as a busy human being and the ecosystems that companies are creating to then bring value to my life.
Can you share a concrete example to illustrate that?
Let's go into insurance because that's such a hard to love industry, right? Imagine you're traveling abroad. Let's say it's late at night. You suddenly get really sick. You're scared. You don't speak the language. Now, even if you have insurance, this is usually an absolute nightmare. You're digging through your emails, looking for your policy number. You can't find the hotline. You're not even sure what's covered. And thinking about logging into some portal you never used before while you feel terrible, that's overwhelming. So when we support insurers with our solution, that entire experience flips. When you bought your travel health insurance, you received a digital insurance card. So right now, at night, you just grab your phone, you open your wallet, you tap your card, and instantly you see you're covered. Here's the doctor you can call. Here's what's included. One tap, you're connected, no searching, no login, no stress. So for the consumer, it's a moment of relief. I'm cared for right when I need it most. And for the insurer, that means lower claims and process costs, less complexity, less manual processes, and a customer that actually feels supported. So that's what we do. We turn this piece of paper or this email or PDF that nobody ever looks at into something that is a living digital service layer that's frictionless, that's contextual, and most of all, that's human and easy to use when you need it most.
So what kind of clients or industries do you work with?
So we are a cross-industry solution. We work with mid-sized to enterprise clients, mostly enterprise clients, in industries like automotive, telecommunication, retail, but also mobility players like Sixt. But what I'm especially proud of is that we support a lot of companies in highly regulated and hard-to-love industries like insurance, and that we have clients like Zurich, HDI, Ergo, R&V, Admiral Direct, and they trust us. And the benefit that we bring to them is always the same. We provide this first interface layer to the customer. So instead of having this fragmented ecosystem of apps, portals, and channels, they then get this frictionless small entry point to their customers in a place where everybody already is because we're using our digital wallets every day.
Your company is based in Berlin, which, despite some competition from Bavaria, remains the most important startup hub in Germany. In your opinion, Anna, what makes it an ideal place for a creative tech startup like yours?
Berlin is perfect for that because it has this thriving startup scene. So it attracts a lot of talent anyways. But you also have these world-class universities, and you have an amazing tech scene, and you have an amazing creative scene, and all of that is happening in the same city. So you've got academia, creative, and engineering cultures that truly mix. And that's really unique, which makes it the perfect place for a startup like us.
Your workforce, on the other hand, is spread all over the world. Part of the team is located in Ho Chi Minh City in Vietnam, where you've established a tech hub.
At the time when we made that decision, we were very aware that in Ho Chi Minh City, there was a strong scene of developers that were extremely well trained, that even Google went there to recruit machine learners in that area. And one of my co-founders has a Vietnamese background, and he also did study in Ho Chi Minh City for a while. So we just decided to try it. You want to attract the best possible talent, and you also want to have as much diversity as possible. So this is why I truly believe in doing both, having a strong hub where we make sure that our alignment is exceptional and we can carry that alignment to the people who are not working in the same room with us.
Last April, you secured an $8 million funding round led by Earlybird and Beta Venture. How will this funding help you take the next steps and shape your growth?
We're planning to use the funding we've gotten in 3 ways, I'd say. Of course, to strengthen our sales and customer success team. And we also expand to other European markets. European markets as well as globally is our next step. And third, of course, to evolve what Wallet Studio can do to really help our partners in service industries, insurance, to make the most of the ecosystems that they're building and that they have been building over the past years. And now with AI-based solution that can potentially solve a lot of problems, that's extremely relevant. So we're really going into making everything they already have more accessible to their customers. And that is one of the big focus areas that we have right now in our current phase.
What's your advice for international entrepreneurs considering starting a company in Germany or expanding their young business into the German market?
Germany can feel extremely complex from the outside. So you've got bureaucracy, you've got regulations, you do have a language barrier. But on the other hand, the opportunity is real as well. So it is the largest economy in Europe with world-leading industries in healthcare, automotive, insurance, and customers, enterprise customers who really value trust and reliability. So for startups that want to build long-term relationships, Germany is an incredible proving ground. It's large enough to matter, and it has the structures you can tap into. And if your product then works here, it can really work everywhere. Going into Germany, what you need to be aware of is that you really have to tap into building strong relationships and leverage that and listen well to how customers talk about the challenges they have, because that will uncover a lot of the structural problems you can then go in and solve for them. And then they're internally, then they're really grateful and they form relationships with you that last.
Loyal customers, every entrepreneur's dream and goal. Thanks a lot for sharing your insights, Anna. And now for something completely different. Have you ever heard of pressure pulsations in pumps? Probably not. Startups often tackle problems most of us don't even know exist. With that in mind, let's meet Hydronauten. A young company from the northeastern city of Rostock has developed a technology to cancel out these pulsations. It's a huge milestone. Why? Let's ask founder Johannes Büker.
Pumps actually use around 20% of the world's electricity. If you don't control the pump runs on a fixed speed, and they use a big amount of energy that you don't use. And if you control them in sync with the needs of the power grid, then you can help keep it stable. The problem is doing that creates pressure pulsations that can damage the pipeline system and the connected machinery. These pressure pulsations causes vibrations and noise. We developed the world's first technology that actively removes these pulsations at any operational point of the pump system.
So it's a bit like noise-cancelling headphones, which generate countersound to block out noise, but in this case, for industrial pumps.
This was the beginning, and after that we saw that we can control the pump directly out of these informations. And so on top of that, we built an AI that automatically adjusts each pump to run at the most efficient setting. And that can save up to 25% of energy use. And with billions of pumps worldwide, that's a massive savings.
So this second problem, or rather the opportunity to save huge amounts of energy, wasn't really on your radar at first.
At the beginning, I want to go fast into the market, fast to a customer. We installed our systems in a wastewater plant and a heat pumping system and on a ship from the federal police. And there we saw this need of controlling the pump, and there we saw that the amount of energy that they consume is so big, and there's such a big potential to control the pump directly. These founding programs in Germany are great for ideas to realize these ideas, and they are very open for new ideas. So if you have funding from the government, for example, it is easy to change the way that you are developing. If you have new ideas, you can easily realize them directly.
Which isn't so easy if your money is coming from a venture capital fund.
The investors, it's clear, they have in finance interesting on these ideas and on these solutions. And with these government foundings or with these foundings for the R&D in Germany, you can make research and development in different ways without this pressure of the finance goals.
When we talk about Germany, the strength of SMEs often comes to mind. It's a pillar of the economy. What role do startup-driven innovations play in all of this?
I think the German Mittelstand is quite open for innovations from startups. More and more of these companies are setting up their own venture capitals. Big companies can sometimes get stuck in their daily routine, so they often welcome fresh ideas from the outside.
You're based in Rostock. What are the advantages of being in this medium-sized northeastern city?
I think 10 years ago, it was not such easy to found a startup in the regions that are not directly connected to the big cities. But here in Rostock is not so big, but these support that we get from the university, from different institutes, it's rising up. It is not this big bubble, this big startup bubble where only the highest raised startups looked on. You have got a small group of founders. You can meet them from time to time. And so you can solve your problems, or you can ask another founder, for example, directly. That's one point that I think it's a positive kind of founding a company in the regional area. I think at the moment, I can say to everybody, founders, keep going on and don't give up. So it mustn't be Berlin or Munich to make ideas great.
Looking beyond that, how would you describe the general startup scene in Germany?
The German market can feel a bit conservative at first, and things may take longer than you expect. For example, with all these paper stuff. But once you are established a foothold, the opportunities are really impressive. These partnerships that we have in Germany are very, very consistent. And that is something for startups in Germany that is different, I think, to other countries. And so this is a great chance for everyone, for every startup from the foreign country.
Encouraging words from Johannes Bucher, co-founder of Hydronauten. And there have been lots of encouraging developments for startups recently, as we'll now hear in our news roundup. Better tender. Germany's governing cabinet has put forth legislation to make the public tendering process more efficient and fair. The upper limit on the value of direct government contracts will be increased from 15,000 to 50,000 euros. Review procedures will be accelerated. The new rules will create temporary exceptions for defence procurements, and they'll increase opportunities for SMEs, startups, and innovative companies to win government contracts. Games growth. Good news from the German gaming industry. Turnover increased by 4% in the first half of 2025, reaching 4.6 billion euros. The growth, which comes after a brief market dip, was driven by hardware in which revenues were up 17%. More than half of all Germans play video games at least occasionally. Somewhat surprisingly, female gamers play on average 20 minutes more per day than men. Flying high. Munich's ESA Aerospace has been commissioned to put 2 rockets into space for the European Space Agency. ESA will become the first German company to transport ESA rockets into orbit. Previously, such missions have been carried out by the French Ariane Group. ESA Aerospace specialises in small to medium-sized satellite transport and is currently valued as a unicorn. And speaking of unicorns, Germany welcomed 2 new ones. The Finnish-German company IQM Quantum Computers cracked the $1 billion valuation mark after a successful $320 million Series B funding round. It was the largest deal ever for a quantum computing startup in Europe. And Berlin fintech platform provider N8N also achieved unicorn status after increasing its value 8-fold in only 4 months. Finally, size matters. Venture capital deals are getting bigger and bigger. This summer, 3 Berlin startups, WeFox, Recap and Talon One, raised sums of more than 100 million euros in fresh capital. It's part of a general trend of VC investors loosening their purse strings for fledgling firms in Germany. Now let's check in with Philipp Kovener. He heads the Trend and Innovation Scouting team at Germany Trade and Invest. It supports startups entering the German market and helps those from Germany grow internationally. So who better to ask about the state of the German startup landscape? Philipp, let's jump right in. What sets Germany apart as a place to start and grow a company?
Germany is a rather big country with a very diversified economy, and the same applies to startups. So there are various sectors German startups are very strong in, for instance, health or IoT, I would say, logistics also. So there are very many fields of expertise within Germany. And what makes Germany unique is many things, but maybe first of all, that geography-wise, the German economy is not very concentrated, as it would be, for instance, in the UK or in France. Here, we have various centers of gravity, and the same applies to startups. So the startups are not all in one city, but in various cities.
Startups are flourishing all over Germany. The regional state of Saxony in the east has recorded a massive rise in the number of companies founded, and Bavaria to the south and North Rhine-Westphalia in the west are also seeing robust growth. Still, the German capital Berlin is what first springs to mind when we talk about startups.
I'm living in Berlin myself, and it's a great place to live, and I understand that many startups and young entrepreneurs and software engineers, they like the free lifestyle that you can live here and the cheap prices, and the fact that there is a huge international tech scene. However, Munich is, in my opinion, at least a very close second, if not on par, with Berlin, especially since there is so much industry and so many big corporates. But there are other centers of gravity as well. So North Rhine-Westphalia in the west of Germany, especially with the Ruhr and the Rhine area. So there are also various centers of gravity which are very interesting for startups, especially, let's say to GreenTech and maybe even defense and resilience.
So there are different centers of gravity, as you put it, depending on the business area.
Startups tend to follow their customers. I would strongly suppose that there are very good fintech startups in Frankfurt because this is where all the banks are. Also, if you consider, let's say, chemistry, you know that Mannheim-Ludwigshafen is very well known for its big health and chemistry hub, especially since BASF is there. If you have a look at the economic strength of the various regions in Germany, you can be fairly sure that there are good startups of that industry in that region. Whenever I'm in France speaking to startups of the tech sector, it's usually more or less concentrated in Paris. And similar things apply to, let's say, the UK, where by and large, the majority of the tech sector is focused in London. And here it's quite different. So rather regional centers of gravity and a federal state structure, which means that support structures for startups, money-wise or program-wise, are usually an issue of the states.
So Germany's strength lies in this regional diversity. That's reflected in the D-Hub initiative. It's been around for 8 years. What's the idea behind it?
It's an initiative set up by the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy. They set up 25 hubs all across Germany. And a hub is always a physical location. And let's say, startups and established companies of one sector are in the hub. So, for instance, taking Frankfurt. Frankfurt is very well known for its banks. So we set up the FinTech hub in Frankfurt. There are startups and established companies working, collaborating in the field of FinTech. Both sides have a gain out of this. As startups, they get access to companies and they get access to funding, money, that is. And the established companies, so the banks and the payment providers and that sort of companies, they get new ideas and new technology and new talent, right? And this applies not only to the FinTech hub in Frankfurt, but also to the maritime logistics hub in Hamburg or the cybersecurity hub in Darmstadt or the deep tech hub in Berlin. And what I do and my colleagues do is we try to make this international. So we try to get foreign startups into those hubs. So when a foreign startup company says, hey, Philip, we would like to enter the German market. We don't know anybody, no contacts, and we're not quite sure if we have a good product market fit. Can you help us? I usually say I can't, but I know the people who can, and this is done in the hubs.
Can you share an example of a startup that really got the decisive push to come to Germany thanks to one of these hubs?
From my personal history, this was GTAI, a Korean startup company, and they do some very advanced stuff with AI. So we brought them into contact with both our AI hub in Karlsruhe and our mobility hub in Munich. And this worked out quite well. In the end, they established a subsidiary here in Germany, which we're very happy about.
Are there any sectors that are especially dynamic right now? And as a consequence, particular areas that you focus on?
I think one sector that has not reached its full potential and where we might see some, let's say, acceleration and some increase in what is happening might actually be defense. There are many smart founders in Germany, smart defense companies, both hardware and software. I wouldn't say that we support some sectors more than others. We decide on a, let's say, individual case base, and then we try to support the startups entering into Germany as good as possible.
It's worth pointing out here that both Germany Trade and Invest and the hubs provide their services for free. So, apart from diversity, what else does Germany have going for it?
We take great pride in the German SMEs, so Mittelstand, as we always say, and I think this still holds true. So there are many very healthy companies in Germany which are not large corporations, but middle-sized companies, and many of them are quite open to innovation and to finding new ways how to do things. So and this also is important for our startups. Second, there is government support. So there's a decisive startup strategy here in Germany, which lies mainly within the Federal Ministry for Economic Affairs and Energy.
In July 2022, the German government introduced its first dedicated startup strategy, comprising around 130 measures aimed at improving the framework for startups and strengthening the ecosystem. The efforts are already showing results. In the 2024 Best Countries ranking conducted by the magazine US News and World Report, Germany ranks first for entrepreneurship. Yet challenges remain. In your view, what are the biggest hurdles for startups in Germany today?
I talk a lot to founders. What I usually get is, Philip, isn't it true that things in Germany are rather bureaucratic? And yeah, it's true. It's a rather bureaucratic country, and many things are still done on paper here. So that's really one thing that concerns international people. Let's say speed or lack thereof, and bureaucracy. Second, which is especially bad for startups, is data protection. So we are very proud of our data protection here in Germany. However, many startups have, let's say, data-based business models, and they tend to collide with data protection every now and then. And the third, access to money, access to venture capital. So we have, let's say, hardware startups, deep tech startups, engineering capacity. And what we don't have, especially in comparison to let's say, the US is strong venture capital market. And this is, for many startups, quite a convincing factor to go to the US.
From your perspective, what needs to be done to make Germany an even more attractive location for startups?
I believe that the startup strategy of the former government was quite successful. And I would love if there was, let's say, a startup strategy 2.0, and I think there will be one. That would be the, let's say, the policy aspect. If possible, I would love to see better support for German startups to obtain venture capital. And the third would probably be an ease on bureaucracy and data protection. I'm convinced that Germany is a very good place for startups, and I know that the German government has quite a sound interest in startups, and there are support mechanisms in place, such as GTAI or the DE-Hub initiative. So if anybody should hear this and ask, well, is Germany maybe the right place for my startup? I'm convinced that it is, and I invite everybody to get in contact with me and talk about the various possibilities.
Thank you very much, Philipp, for sharing your insights on Germany's startup ecosystem and the opportunities it offers. And now for a look at how Germany works. As we heard from Philipp, one unique resource for startups in Germany is the D-Hub network. It's an association created by the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy and funded both nationally and regionally. It's directly targeted at helping fledgling companies make the connections they need to thrive and grow. For instance, it helps startups find more established business partners and opportunities for collaboration with business associations, universities, and research institutions. The 25 hubs cover a broad range of high-tech areas. The D in the name D-Hubs refers not only to Deutschland, but also to the digital ecosystems the initiative aims to help create. And that's how Germany works. So, we've come to the end of another episode of Into Germany. If you're working on a business idea and need a location, don't hesitate to get in touch with Germany Trade and Invest. We'll be happy to advise you, all at no cost, because we're a government agency. Get in touch at GTAI.com. We're also keen on your opinions, suggestions, and questions. Please leave a comment in your favourite podcast app or drop us a line. You'll find all the details in our show notes. We'll be back towards the end of the year with a roundup of some of the biggest German business stories of 2025. Till then, stay creative, auf Wiederhören, and remember, Germany means business.